So we're following up with a little bit of mailbag here from the comments on my channel. Gloomhaven, Battletech, the new beginner's box, and the game of Armored Combat. And from there, building out some Battletech stuff, looking at mechs and coming up with an attack plan for your collection. All right, so Gloomhaven is this massive, massive box of absolute craziness in terms of replayability, in terms of unlockability, all the various quests on there, the different configurations of the monsters and your characters and gear and story. I mean, it really, really is, just in the core alone, so immersive. But it's this dual-edged sword because even with organizers, and I've got kind of a homemade organizer, there's a lot of setup, there's a lot of takedown, there's a lot of pre-prep for the missions on there. That has to factor in terms of transportability. It's one thing if you're playing with a gaming group and you set things up a little bit ahead of time, and then when the session is over, you can kind of break it down. That's vastly different than if you have to transport this beast. That's not a criticism that's looking at it. It's part of the epicness of it. But there's so much to unlock, so much to discover. What I love, a couple of things that I love most about Gloomhaven, and truly, Gloomhaven is one of those games that you could spend and probably will spend years on. And even if you're not a crazy, crazy board gamer, Gloomhaven is an amazing diversion and well worth the price of entry on there. And that's before we even get into the future content that's going to be released. But the two things, and this is filing into the comments and the feedback, the two things that I enjoy are the character unlocks, meaning you start with some base characters, and then as you achieve goals and as the game progresses, you unlock future character classes. And I'm not going to give away any spoilers. The Gloomhaven community is great about not giving away any spoilers, so we're going to leave it at that. But also the adventures that you encounter, as you unlock them, you put stickers on the board. And those unlock based on the story, based on decisions, but also based on the characters that you play. So from a solo perspective, Gloomhaven is up there. Gloomhaven is up there in the top 5 easily because as a solo gamer, you can set it up, you can play it for a while, you don't have to worry about the setup and takedown, you can analyze the decisions, you can really go at your pace in terms of the playability, replayability, and campaign. So the question is, how many characters to play? Half of Gloomhaven is the unlocks. Half of Gloomhaven is exploring. I feel like similar emotional feelings from when I first started playing Dungeons & Dragons, where every encounter was new. Everything absolutely was new. So we want to capitalize on that first-time new experience. And then, of course, as you later on replay some of the same missions and explore different aspects or try out different character classes on there, that works, but nothing beats that first time through. What I recommend, and it's going to be a little challenging at first, but of course you've got YouTube videos and things like that, 4 characters. 4 characters on there. And the reason why I say that is so much of the game revolves around random personal quests that you draw. And by its very nature of being random, some of these personal goals and quests based on the missions, based on the unlocks that you acquire, some are easier than others. For a while, with the group, I was playing the Cragheart, kind of like this giant Eberron Warforged brute for the D&D reference. That's why I loved playing him. And my personal quest was it was challenging on there. I didn't really have a lot of opportunity for it. And that slowed down some of the unlocks that we were pushing for on there. So if you play with one character, there's a chance that your unlocks will slow down. And when you unlock a new character class, it just becomes available. You don't have to necessarily play it on there. But fair is fair, and so much of it is the discovery. You want to have the options for those decision trees. You want to have those options for upgrading the cards with various powers and things. Playing 4 characters is going to give you the diversity to do that, give you the opportunity to do that, and let you run through those scenarios for the very first time with full options and really, really getting the most out of the game. I mean, that's what it's built up on and about. The downside is, as solo, the first couple of missions, there's a lot of moving parts. You're managing 4 characters. So it's not only the individual character on there, but it's the synergy between them. It's trying to figure things out. So be prepared to go a little bit slower than normal. Absolutely be prepared on the first mission to make absolute mistakes and kind of have to look at the rules and see where things go. YouTube videos will help. Tutorials will help. But that would be my recommendation. And if you're thinking about jumping into Gloomy, I mean, absolutely. It's up there. There's almost nothing else to continue saying. Second part, podcast, Mailbag. Battletech models and the starter set. We see this a lot. I've seen this a lot. This idea that the older Battletech models, for lack of a better description, are pretty ugly, and some of them are downright goofy looking on there. Now, maybe I've been playing Battletech forever. Maybe it's kind of looking at that 80s and 90s cyberpunk, post-punk. I mean, by now I'm supposed to have my flying car. I'm supposed to be completely jacked in, and Shadowrun is supposed to be like where life is and how life is on there. None of that ever materialized. But a lot of that ethos went into the design of Battletech because it was the 80s and 90s. I mean, if you want to talk about a game that's perfect for like a techno cyberpunk playlist, Battletech it's where it's at. So I feel like the designs really, really reflect the core, the classic, the tabletop era of it. With that, yes, some of the early battle mechs, they were a direct ripoff. So they're very streamlined. You know, essentially we've got like Robotech Tactics in there. But the idea at the beginning of Battletech is you have this tremendous technology. There's technology that we can't even comprehend. But the inner sphere, the various houses, humanity has been at war for so long, so much of the technology is lost or barely working, jury-rigged. A lot of the mech factories, most of them are automated, and no one has really any idea how they're operating. And if they stop operating, you have to cannibalize parts. So you see this in some of the novels and the narrative where you have a battle mech that has particle cannons on it, has a fusion engine, has advanced tech, but it's like 300 years old. And it's been repaired and re-repaired so many times to the point that you've got iron sights on this thing. You know, you have no like optics to shoot. You're lining things up old school and shooting because that part of the mech sensors just got destroyed like 100 years ago and there's no parts for it. It's a very, very interesting narrative. And a lot of what we see in the Battletech timeline is those early mech designs, they're actually like a retro or a fallen look. This idea that in the Star League, which is the start of the Battletech era, the mechs were much more advanced looking. They were a lot, how would we say, sexier looking. You know, think of Gundam or kind of mecha type look on there. But the ability to produce new mechs and repair mechs has led them more to kind of a blocky design. And then later on in the clan era, when the clans invade, we see the mech designs there closer, you know, if you just look at the model line, closer to what you think of as like mechs work like. Now there's been a reboot, you know, Catalyst with the 2 new sets, the beginner box and the Game of Armored Combat, certainly feeling the love and feeling the design pressure from the newer incarnations of Battletech with the video games. There's also kind of an underground black market for print and play mechs and printable mechs that are out there that reflect kind of a more dynamic blocky design. So if that's what's holding you back, the looks, I don't say that's silly because it's a war game, and a war game is about the visuals. I mean, one of the things that pulls me into Warhammer 40,000, besides the narrative, is the sexiness of the models, playing Space Marines, playing Necrons, playing Chaos Marines on there. I mean, to me, they look amazing on there. It compels me to build my army and my collection. So if you like the idea, you like the narrative of Battletech, but you're like, hey, the models, they don't really do it, there are more and more alternatives. Starting with the 2 box sets, absolutely. From there, going over to Ironwind and looking at their miniatures, their collection, often what they have for a number of the mechs are kind of the older physical designs, but also updated sculpts. We see this with the Battlemaster. We see this with the Warhammer. We see this with the Marauder. That's on there. So there are more and more alternatives. But when you look at those of us who are playing Battletech for a long time and maybe have been building up their collection over time, you are going to see a lot of the older models on there. I think things are evolving, and I'm sure we'll get new releases, but it's going to be a little bit slow. So part 2, looking at the core set. A lot of great mechs in there. You've got, for the Game of Armored Combat and the beginner box, you don't have a single bad mech. You don't have a single mech that is junk in there. Now, obviously, in terms of balance, light mechs, if you look at the Commando, and if you look at the Locust, for the most part, the Commando has an edge on the Locust. But within this classification of Battletech, where you have light mechs, medium, heavy, and assault, we're going to leave battle armor and proto-mechs out for a moment because that's much later in the Battletech timeline. There is a big difference between being a lower-end light mech and a higher-end light mech. Within the spectrum of the tonnage of each of the classes of mechs, light, medium, heavy, and assault, there's a wide swing. There's also light mechs that were designed for recon, like the Locust. There were light mechs that were designed for ambush or attacking other light mechs, like the Commando. You see some light mechs that for the battle value and tonnage, they were designed to take on other light mechs and win no matter what, or either possibly, not saying it's smart, possibly engaging medium mechs. So you see that with the Panther. It's got a PPC and short-range missile pack on there. So there's a lot of diversity in there. In the core set, not everything is fully equal by weight class, but all those mechs excel. So I would play and utilize those and just play the heck out of missions like crazy starting out. I would not win. I would not worry about winning or losing. And that's hard, right? This is especially hard when you're starting a new wargaming system because you have the enthusiasm, you're learning, and what validates that learning is win, besides the fact it's awesome to win on there. But just by playing games and allowing yourself to learn the role of the various mechs, assault mechs, support mechs, kind of guardian, bodyguard type mechs, all these classifications of different mechs. By learning that, now that will inform you not only the play style you like to play. You know, look, I love playing Locusts and just running around and plinking away and having people shoot and they don't hit on there and the thrill of that, whatever it's going to be for your player personality, that's now going to move in and inform you to building up your collection and seeing what direction you want to go. What I would say when you're ready to make that step, certainly in my opinion, and Battletech has been through a lot of incarnations. We've started with miniatures, we've had cardboard cutouts, some people play with pogs, other people print and play their own stuff. So you don't necessarily need miniatures to play, but Battletech being a war game and the miniatures, the 3D elements of it, I believe that's the only way to really enjoy Battletech. But I realize as you expand your collection out, you don't want to get stuck with some real dog of a design, you know, unless you want to collect a variety of mechs on there. What I would recommend is as you have your fill of the Game of Armored Combat, the starter sets on there, play a couple of games with some proxies. Print out something, cut out something, color print something on there, stick it to a stand. Some of the other mechs that you might be looking at in the tech manuals, or even if you're just flipping through some of the battle sheets online and stuff, play a couple of games. If you master the mechs in the core set, it's almost like the core set is like a mech school, mech warrior school. Once you've mastered those roles, throw those mechs up against the mechs that you're thinking about acquiring, the printout, the proxy mechs, proxy machines on there. See how it plays. See what it does. And then from there, that'll inform you if you want to go on to buy the physical. That would be my attack plan. Or if you know someone that plays Battletech, then look, I've got more mechs to hook you up with, and we could play dozens and dozens of games and just go crazy doing it. If you can hook up with someone in the Battletech community or get a little bit of a push on there, that's certainly, absolutely, that's always the way to go with wargaming. But if you're doing solo, or you're jump-starting your group, or you're the first in the group with the enthusiasm, master those mechs, get the core down, proxy a couple of cutouts and some printouts on there for 3 or 4 games, and then you'll be in a good place to make that decision of acquisition for your collection.